Now, because of AI, all of the opportunities become kind of brighter and sparklier and they seem easier, but you have to continue to keep blinders on for the most important allocation of resources. And now it's really everything that we do new, kind of new products, new ideas should really be AI native, not based on just increasing efficiencies using AI tools, but AI should be the solution, not the afterthought to anything new that we launch. And really, if Habi was born today, given what we've learned, what tools exist, and the solution we want to provide, how can AI do that in a superior way?
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of AI Without Borders. I'm thrilled to have Brynne McNulty, co-founder of Habi, a Latin American startup reinventing how people buy, sell, and finance their homes. They have raised over $300 million from funds like Homebrew, SoftBank, and Flybridge. Over the past 18 months, Habi has been on a journey not only to scale its core business, but also to become an AI-first company. Brynne, welcome. It's great to have you here.
I'm thrilled to be here. And as you know, we're grateful for the partnership with Flybridge since the very early days.
So for people who are not familiar with Habi, can you share a brief overview of what the company does?
So at Habi, our mission is to empower every Latin American to understand, access, and optimize the wealth stored in their homes, unlocking opportunities that enable them to build a brighter future. We do that through using data, AI, and tech-enabled tools to build a better residential market, one that's transparent, liquid, and efficient, because today it's fundamentally broken, as you know very well. It takes a year and a half to sell a home. The market's underlevered, and there are trillions of dollars of wealth that's trapped in bricks. And that's just in our current markets of Mexico and Colombia alone. And we're working with every player in the ecosystem, banks, brokers, government, to help them do the things that they need to do better, because we're building the rails to support a functioning residential market. What does that look like in terms of what we're specifically offering to the market today? We have services on the consumer-facing side from everything from list, estimate, transact, and finance. So we have the largest listing player in Mexico, propiedades.com by inventory. We have in Estimate the most used evaluation service, so people can understand, often for the first time, the value of their homes. In transactions, we offer both on-balance sheet transactions, or we call market making, where we'll buy and sell homes from consumers directly. And then we have our broker platform, where we have the largest broker network across Mexico and Colombia. And then in financial services, we help people get access to purchase financing or mortgages. We work with banks and semi-government entities. So we act as a broker or an intermediary in that instance. We've achieved scale across all of the businesses. We're the largest buyer and seller of used homes by many orders of magnitude in each Mexico and Colombia. And the one stat I don't think I gave is in Colombia today, we're the largest non-bank mortgage originator. We do, depending on the month, between 5 and 10% of disbursements in the country pass through our mortgage brokerage platform. So the data asset that we've built and these various tools that we've built have really enabled us to start to support people in the most important financial decisions of their lives.
No, that's an impressive scale. And for the people from the US who maybe are not as familiar, can you share some of the difference between the Latin American PropTech market and the real estate market in the US?
Yeah, of course. The best comp that we've been able to come up with to help people understand what it's like to buy or sell a home in these markets is if you were to imagine buying a used car that you found on Craigslist, meeting the seller of that car in a parking lot at night of a supermarket and using cash to buy the car. And by the way, having no Kelley Blue Book with which to value that car, just asking your friends what they think a 2015 BMW X5 might be worth with some amount of miles. And you kind of ask around and come up with a price, negotiate with the seller, and go pay cash at night. It's really incredibly informal. It's fraught with fraud. And the implication of that in the used home market is that it's really hard for people to exist in this transparent liquid place that we are so familiar with in the United States. It takes about a year and a half to sell the home. The majority of homes are not listed online. Brokers are not licensed, fragmented, very informal. And 85% of the homes in these markets have no leverage on them whatsoever. So what does that mean for people and the wealth of a country that's truly trapped? If you think about Colombia, which you know very well, the residential real estate asset value is just under $1 trillion US. 85% of the homes are unlevered. If you assume the homes that have mortgages on them are levered at 100%, which is obviously not true, 850 billion of wealth is trapped in bricks that will take a year and a half or more potentially to sell, and that people today are not able to access to invest in education or invest in starting a business or invest whatever they want to move their life forward. And that has tremendous implications for the financial stability and the potential wealth creation for families, but also unleashing that liquidity into the economy can be totally transformational for the future of the country.
Yeah, no, I can validate the having lived there, I can validate a lot of those inefficiencies. And going towards the AI first focus now. So Javi has been using AI for some time, but at some point in the past couple years, you decided to make Javi an AI first company. Can you walk us through that process from the initial exploration, like you started with some smaller initiatives, to the point where you said this is going to be a core priority across the organization to be AI first?
So we started the business in 2019, and we had machine learning at the core of what we did from day one. We built a proprietary data asset around home prices, and then we used a model to help us automate the pricing of homes so that we could buy and sell the homes. The first product that we launched was market making, so we were buying and selling homes using the balance sheet. And we needed that model to be very good because we couldn't lose money on homes, obviously, or we would have gone out of business. And it has obviously evolved a tremendous amount since then. And the model today now in Colombia makes 99% of our offers automatically. Mexico is not far behind, but it's expanded into every piece of the business. It's really integrated into everything that we do. We decided a couple years ago that this was the future of how the business should be run, and we began to make it a priority in training people, specific project deliverables, and OKRs, promoting a mindset to have people use AI to solve problems better. And now it's really everything that we do new, kind of new products, new ideas should really be AI native, not based on just increasing efficiencies using AI tools, but AI should be the solution, not the afterthought to anything new that we launch. And really, if Habi was born today, given what we've learned, what tools exist, and the solution we want to provide, how can AI do that in a superior way? But the way that we really kind of concretely rolled this out was we had a big launch where Sebastian and I presented to the company that this new philosophy where we were an AI first business. And then how did we make that possible? We had free licenses for every single person at Habi, Gemini access for all master keys, as we call them. We trained people through a Gemini session every week. We did workshops for N8N. We did workshops for Midjourney. We brought in external speakers and experts on general systems and specific topics. And that helped bring everyone to the same level of excitement. Of course, people who felt intimidated by AI initially, but also those who were kind of from technical backgrounds who felt that some LLMs might be kind of like squishy and just about writing better. It helped everyone see the power that can be unlocked for them personally through becoming well kind of trained people in these different skills. Additionally, we had mentor AI session every Friday at noon where the CTO and a mentoring group were available to absolutely anyone in the organization on a first come, first serve basis, answer questions, help them on projects that we're working on, any implementations. We set up AI demo days with presentations to showcase internal projects. We showcase results from the Pioneers program, which I'll explain. And we spent a lot of time talking about failures, learnings, and opportunities so that the whole organization can improve. We have the Pioneers program that I just referred to, where those that have achieved kind of interesting, successful projects get nominated and approved into this Pioneers program where they get exclusive company merch, like they get a formal certificate signed by a co-founder and the CTO. And most importantly, to many people, they get a designation in the HR database that flags them for priority for promotions. And we just continue to give a ton of recognition to people who are moving forward in this space. So that's kind of what we've been doing till today. And we would consider that really like carrot and incentives and opportunities and giving people the chance to move forward. And now we're transitioning a bit more into carrot plus stick, where it's time for people to have begun to achieve some measure of mastery of the tools that are appropriate for their role. So starting at the end of this month, we'll have mandatory assessments around a minimum AI proficiency level, depending on their role and their seniority. Some people need just level 1, which is like using an AI assistant. Some people will be required to be level 3, 4, 5. And if they're not where they need to be, they may be put on a PIP because that's part of their job requirement now. And in the next quarter of performance reviews, We're going to incorporate AI capabilities into the formal process, and it will be a consideration for performance, growth, and compensation. So that's kind of the holistic push that we've made as an organization to ensure that it's at the forefront of every decision and every action in every part of the company, not just the traditionally tech or kind of data areas.
And related to this last point, one of the things that you were mentioning to me, how the increasing speed that you were seeing in product shipping with AI, are you seeing that as a result mostly of the technical team using coding assistants, or what are some of the other areas where you're seeing that exponential increase in productivity?
So I think some of the obvious uses of these AI tools are in the AI-driven software development. In addition to that, we've been thrilled by non-technical people using AI tools. So I think we can split those into two separate buckets. In terms of the AI-driven software development cycles improving time, to the example you asked about, we recently launched a new product, and the onboarding of what it would be to bring someone on to understand their credit profile and application took our CTO at a former business building the exact same kind of onboarding process, 60 developers and 12 months. We were able to build the exact same thing using 5 developers in 6 months. This took half the time and 1/12 of the team size, or 24 times more efficient, depending how you want to associate time and team size. But it's really remarkable the speed with which you can launch new things with so many or so fewer people. And this specific team that's launching this new product is moving and building 5 times faster than traditional top tier development teams or what we've been able to do in the past. And we're trying to roll this out to the rest of the tech organization. And our hope is to get on average 3 times developer productivity boost by year end. We're in the process of doing that now. I think today, on average, we have about half the tech org running at 3 to 5 times productivity, and we need to move the balance to get to the same level.
That's an impressive growth. And one of the things we've seen across the board is that successful implementations of AI are based on like not losing the customer trust in the process. And especially in Avi's case, you're touching people's home, which in Latin America and in most parts of the world is likely the most important asset where trust is really central. As you were doing this, your AI strategy, how did you make sure not to lose kind of people trust in that process, especially in the context of a lot of AI requires sometimes experimentation and some failure along the journey?
So I'll talk about one of the first big rollouts that we had of a consumer facing tool, which was probably 2 years ago now, though my sense of time is not perfect. Where we took sellers coming through the funnel of the market making business. So when people were selling their homes to us, in that process, historically, after people received an automated price, a sales human would call or WhatsApp them and say, "Hey, Daniel, did you receive the price of $100,000 for your home for which we would buy it? Do you have any questions? And can I set up a home visit?" And the end of that step was agreeing to have a home visit and scheduling that. And we built out an agent to do the same thing. And we decided to test it on that specific stage of the funnel. And we took the bottom 15% of qualified leads because, as you can imagine, we didn't want to risk the business and if it didn't work well. And what we found was actually conversion doubled in those low qualified leads. And we were really surprised by that. And we started slowly to test and expand the percentage of leads on which the agent was deployed, and then through subsequent stages of the funnel, now through commercial negotiation and close on a price. And we found that conversion and NPS is the same or higher using the agent versus a human, whether or not they're proactively advised that they're working with an AI agent or bot. And why is that? And it's really because the consumer is better served in many instances. They're able to interact with a counterparty that is available 24/7 with absolutely unending amount of patience and with the cumulative knowledge of every transaction and complexity that we have ever encountered throughout the history of Habi. So it's actually and the consumer has more control and it's a more knowledgeable counterparty than with humans. And every single consumer coming through the funnel gets that same level of service. If you're a human agent, you have to allocate your time to the highest qualified leads. That's a rational thing to do. So the cost of us to serve those really low qualified leads is relatively high because it takes away from people serving the higher qualified leads. Not to mention that these people have to sleep and eat and do all the things that a normal human has to do that take away from them being available to respond to customers at any moment of the day. So we've been thoughtful about rolling them out in ways that result in a superior experience for the consumer and a way in which them feels more empowered and more in control.
And one of the things I found super interesting that you shared with me was the hackathons that you've been doing, not just internally, but also externally. Can you share a couple of those things that have come out of the hackathons and have they started to evolve to something that you're actually deploying?
So with the hackathons get a lot of excitement, again, both internally and externally. The vast majority of what comes out are not things that end up moving forward, as you can imagine. There's one example that did not win in the internal hackathon, but has actually continued to be an important kind of project that's implemented and has saved us a lot of money. And that is our Ventaneros call center automations, which uses 11 labs and SynthFlow for voice models and interactions with customers, where historically, in order for us to build a proprietary database around homes that are for sale, we would send people on motorbike or on foot to take pictures of all the window listings. And we didn't touch on this earlier, but I know you know this. The vast majority of homes in these markets have their for sale signs hung on the window or off the balcony, and they're not listed anywhere online, and there's no other formal listing that exists. So for us to understand all of the homes that are for sale, there's a big manual gathering process. So we would map out all the buildings that were kind of after a certain age of being built, and people would go take pictures of all the window listings, send the pictures to a call center, and the call center would call the sellers to gather a variety of data points around the listing. What this new project has done is automates that whole process. So the agent instead will call the kind of AI agent will call the seller, ask for all of the information, and it will cross-check with any data that we have from publicly available information from when the building was built, any other listings that we might have to correct potential issues. And then we don't need a human at a call center doing that. And additionally, it will map out more efficient routes for the people taking the photos so that we optimize their time in every single neighborhood to hit all the buildings that might be relevant. So last quarter alone, that tool processed close to 15,000 properties and cut vendor costs by just under 30%, saving us tens of thousands of dollars. That was like a small fun project from a hackathon that didn't even win, but we realized how useful it is and we've continued to roll it out.
And the other use case that I recall you had mentioned that I found fascinating was the case of a lawyer. And especially when you think about a lawyer, the last thing you think it's the lawyer building something.
Yeah. So we have a couple of instances of people automating either parts of their own job or parts of the steps of the process that they have to do in their day to day. And one of those is a lawyer named Daniel at our firm who worked on improving the process for deed processing and potential issue identification. So using Google Firebase Studio and AI Studio, he built a tool to extract text from deeds, and deeds are not always standard documents. Transcribe and create an alert system to flag any issues or verifications required. And it can automatically process hundreds of documents, increasing quality so that nothing moves forward in credit or transaction processes that might have issues, and was able in only a couple of months to complete the work of one full-time lawyer. Additionally, this might be a product that we offer to the market to save many man hours a day of processing on deeds. So it's pretty remarkable, obviously a not technical role, built out this really powerful tool. Another example is we have a property manager who was just automating part of her job. So she used N8N to automatically do these steps that she needed to do on a day-to-day basis. So when we own a property and brokers are going to visit the property because it's for sale, a human inside Habi, property management team, would manage the access to the properties. They would receive a request from a broker to access the property. They would check that the broker is active in our system and legit. And then they would confirm in our database that the NID or the identification number of the property is correct to the address they provided, that the property is still available. Then they would look up the contact for the building, email the building to advise and authorize access. She built something out that is a form for the broker to fill out, and then the system does all of those things. It completes all of those checks and authorizes access to the building automatically. She just did that to reduce her workload and increase the number of apartments that she could manage.
And as you think about this successful AI implementation, it comes at the end to people. As you're making new hires, are you prioritizing some skills more than ever before when hiring?
So consider ourselves very lucky because we are a mission-driven business that is seeking to empower Latin Americans in the most important potential decisions of their lives. And that goal drives everything that we do and helps us make decisions. In addition to that, I think we've always focused on curious people who are proactive and like to build solutions to problems. In our set of kind of core values, we call people master keys, which represents the idea that you consider yourself a key that can solve all sorts of solutions. You don't just solve the things that are in your day-to-day job, but if you have the capacity to improve the way something is done, you can be the key to unlock that solution also. And today more than ever, that personality and that curiosity and that excitement to proactively solve things is what will lead to great success for an individual and for a business, because the tools for everybody are out there to be able to do that today, as you see from some of these examples.
And related to that talent question, how are you expecting the roles of people inside Habi to change? I was reading that some people are finding that in the future, managers and employees won't be managing other people, but rather managing agents. How are you thinking about that evolution?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We have another example of people who built solutions internally in both HR and sales. Leaders have deployed agents using Google Notebook LM to help kind of outsource some of their management tasks. And it's not pure management, but more training. So in the sales team, there is an internal agent that can answer any question about the sales process. So the process of desistimientos, template documents, support tool for the sales force, complementing training. Just historically, when you have new people on the sales team, and there is higher churn on the sales team than other teams, their direct manager is like inundated with simple questions that now this agent can answer for them in real time as effectively as their manager might be able to do, without costing the manager so many hours and repetition of saying the same thing to so many people outside of the traditional training. This is saving time for both the employee and the manager, and this was made by a sales team lead. Similarly, HR created Helpy, which can answer any HR related question. How do I request vacation? What does this person do? Can I see the rules around compensation and opportunities for promotion? What are the Hobby Choice Awards? How do I apply? It's been used over 1,000 times, and it was just recently launched. And just think about the amount of time that saves. That isn't necessarily traditional management. I think there will always be a place for mentorship and training of like how to be a professional, how to communicate in person. But there's so much lost time in the transfer of simple information that now these tools can do more effectively.
And have you seen employee motivation changing as a result of AI?
I think the thing that we really love is people are able to remove some of the more mundane, painful pieces of every single type of job. So people are a lot more excited and motivated by the pieces of work that they always have loved, and they don't have to do the more annoying things. Of course, it's cost effective and time beneficial for the company, but it's also just a better motivator for people. And I'll give you one example of that. In our hobby credit business, where we act as a broker to help people access mortgages, and a team built on N8N, OpenAI, and Gemini, a tool that reviewed these massive Excels of all of the credit applications that we have with a bank automatically. So if you think about the process historically, a bank would send us an Excel with 50 to 60,000 lines with information on every single credit application. And in order for us to review and update the status of an application and understand if there was an issue, it would take 2 days of review. Then the person would connect with the broker, advise of an issue, what needs to be fixed, get the information. Now the machine reviews the file, flags applications with problems, and we're running 3 times volume per analyst, and our approval for banks are happening 3 times faster. It's only 40% automatic, and we're rolling that out. But as a result, the people on that team, think about how annoying it would be to spend 2 days scrolling down a 50,000 line Excel to get a piece of information that then you have to call someone about. Like, getting that out of their to-do list is amazing. Like, that's a win for everyone. So that's been great to see people be able to, one, have the creativity and the excitement of building a solution that improves their day-to-day life, and then being able to spend time on stuff that's actually value add.
And as a CEO, apart from seeing all those exciting developments, what has been the hardest challenge in your position as you go AI first?
The biggest problem, or the hardest thing that we've had from day one, which I answer every time someone says what's the hardest part about building a company, is focus. We are operating in a market that is broken. There is so much low-hanging fruit in improving residential transactions and financing in these markets. And there are so many opportunities to commercialize some of the internal solutions that we've built out to do the things that we do today. You cannot do 1,000 things at once well. And we've had to be really methodical about the order of operations and the prioritization and the allocation of resources from launch. And an example of that is our first product was market making, which we've talked a bunch about, where we buy and sell homes using our own capital. That is arguably insane. It is the most capital intense, operationally complex piece of this entire business. And to start there is really hard. We decided to do that because we knew that if you were buying and selling homes using your own money, you better get those prices right, as I said earlier. And in order to do that, we had to build a large, valuable, and relevant data asset so that we could run a pricing model and get those prices correct. And we knew that we wanted to build out this full platform to support a functioning market. And our thesis was the only way to change this archaic market that's low trust is to own the asset, own the consumer experience on both sides, begin to build a brand, build trust, and then move into other products and services. So that was the wedge. So we did that, and we've done that kind of with every subsequent expansion, geographic or product since then. Now, because of AI, all of the opportunities become kind of like brighter and sparklier, and they seem easier, but you have to continue to keep blinders on for the most important allocation of resources. As a business, we need to make sure that we're thoughtful around, let's make sure we use AI in a thoughtful way to think about what are AI native solutions to the problems we want to solve, but don't suddenly be like, oh my God, everything's so much easier now. Let's do 10 times the amount of things, because focus cannot be automated.
No, but I agree. What's like giving candy to with somebody with attention disorder with AI, that now you can do so many things that focus really becomes the key thing. And what models are you using at Avi, and are you finding the out of the box models good enough for real estate terminology and Spanish use cases?
So we use a number of models. As I mentioned, we use the OpenAI models for Gabi, for example, and a lot of the day-to-day work, GPT 4.1, some of the minis, and the use varies on the agent use case, and the teams can just pick them depending on what they feel the most comfortable with. And we've traditionally accessed through OpenAI, and we're currently migrating to Azure on Microsoft. We won $150,000 from Microsoft for AI work, so we're continuing to use more of their tools going forward. In terms of the AI development software, often we use Anthropic, Claude Sonnet 4, access through Cursor for a lot of the development team. As I mentioned at the beginning, we trained every single person in the company on Gemini. There's so many different tools out there that I think we've been able to select and adapt depending on different uses. And we have empowered different teams to make some of those decisions on their own. And with the voice models, for example, it's been pretty remarkable because I was worried at first that things would be so focused on US cases. Like, would the Spanish be very good? Could it be adapted to real local needs? And when we think about those call center agents calling people in Bogota or Medellin or in Cali, the accent of the voice of the caller of the AI bot is adapted to the city in which the apartment is for sale. That is how localized and specific we can get these models to be. And so we've had a lot of fun kind of playing around with them and applying them in the way that works best for the specific use case.
And in the United States, one of the things I've been seeing is that it's getting notoriously competitive and expensive, especially to hire high quality technical talent. How are you finding this in Latin America?
High quality people are going to be in demand everywhere. I think historically, tech talent was really, really, really hot, and that there were fewer people in certain markets than in others, and they came with a higher price tag because of the increased demand, especially when startups were booming in Latin America with all the funding of 2019 through 22. We have always been lucky to get the top talent in the market that we've wanted. I believe because of, again, this mission that we have to help Latin Americans in the most important financial decisions of their lives, to unlock access to wealth that is so obviously transformational for the financial future for families and for country or region as a whole. And everyone who comes into the business understands that. And many of them get to see on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis families whose lives we touch, who get mortgages for the first time and become homeowners for the first time in their lives, who have formal relationships with banks for the first times in their lives. And that is a really powerful way to incentivize them to keep growing. Our retention of top talent has always been quite high, and we've never had a huge issue with competition. I think it also helps that we've been able to continue to grow the company significantly through this period of time when many startups have shut their doors throughout the region, as you know, as funding has dried up over the past few years. So I think we're seeing a little bit of a flight to quality of top people who want to be at a business that they know is going to last the long term and be able to have some form of kind of exit or success in the long term. But a lot of it just has to do with why we're here and the fact that we are known for providing our employees with challenging work that allows them to be at the forefront of what's happening in technological advancements. And Sebastian and I consider it a duty to provide the place for people to do the best work of their lives. When people join the company, we say, that it's one of the greatest honors of our careers and of our lives to work with the brilliant people that we do at Habi. And our promise to them as founders is to provide the space in which they can learn, be challenged, and grow without any limit if they're willing to do what they need to do to achieve results and truly be a master key.
And as you think about the excitement with AI, what's your vision for Habi for the next, call it, 3 to 5 years?
So one thing that I'm very excited about is this new product that we're launching. To me is kind of the vision that I've had for Habi that I thought would be much further down the line. And so it has a temporary name now of Mayordomo, which is like Habi concierge, but I think, or butler. But I mean, we need a new name, but it excites me in ways that you can't understand. The idea is we are going to create an agent that partners with every single adult in the markets in which we operate to understand this person, understand their financial profile, understand their goals, and be able to help them through every stage of the homeownership lifecycle. And this will mean when they are looking to potentially buy a home for the first time, what type of home is the right for their profile? What access to debt could they have? What's the likely terms that they could have? Identify potential homes for them, allow them to go visit them, help them access debt very quickly and kind of optimize the rate that they're paying and the LTV that they're able to achieve depending on their ability to pay. As homeowners, we can proactively help them optimize everything about their time as a homeowner. And this is everything from ping, like, hey, your home is probably worth $10,000 more dollars based on recent transactions in your neighborhood and your building. I know you've been wanting to save money. Why don't we help you pull out an additional $2,000 of a HELOC? Here's 10 places that you can get it. Here's the different rates that we think you can do it. We'll facilitate it for you. Now you can have $2,000 of additional liquidity without doing anything, like utilizing your home as collateral in a way that you never could have before. Big stuff like that to, hey, notice that your utility bills are 20% higher than everyone else in your building or everyone else in a similar sized apartment in your neighborhood. Here are the ways in which I think you could bring your utility bill down so that you're not overpaying. Or here's different providers that you want to consider using. And then when you look to sell the home, you want to sell fast, you can sell it to us. You want to sell slower? I mean, we do this today basically, but less personalized. You can sell through a broker platform. You want to list? We can help you list. We can help people understand what those trade-offs look like. And everything can be so deeply personalized because now the cost to do that has come down so significantly. I often have said that it's like the most incredible PWM advisor for every single Latin American, including those who buy $20,000 homes. Someone whose whole life is dedicated to making you make better decisions and helping facilitate everything related to your home. Buying, selling, financing, but then every other detail. Reminder like HVAC kind of service is due. Anything related to the home, we can be the partner facilitating you getting an optimal experience. That seemed so far away in the future because that level of personalization and service, back to the Gabby example, could only be done for those high value clients at a really high cost because it would require humans on our part to dedicate a tremendous amount of time. Now the cost to serve is getting much closer to zero on a per consumer basis, and we can offer this holistic suite of support proactively all the time to everyone. We're obviously not quite there yet, but I'm just so excited because that was always the long-term vision of Habi, like be the partner or the PWM agent to give people the power to control their financial future using their most important asset to do so. And we're so much closer to being able to do that because of AI.
No, and with that positive note, to close, I would love to do a quick fire round. So I give you 3 quick questions and you give me your quick reactions.
Perfect.
What has been the revenue per employee increase you've seen with AI at Habi?
So since we started really rolling out AI solutions, we're about 2.5 times revenue per employee. I would attribute probably close to half of that to AI, but we're not where we should be in terms of rollout, as I mentioned in a bunch of the examples, but we have had a lot of success to date.
Still very impressive. What is one thing in the AI space that you changed your mind in the last couple 2 to 3 years?
I think that I've been totally blown away at how accessible it is for people of every age and no technical skills historically to be able to build tools that have a measurable impact on their lives and their job. I think I felt intimidated by AI tools, and I've been blown away by anybody who has a desire to learn can become incredibly proficient and powerful using these low-code, no-code solutions.
Yeah, no, I agree. We had a great story this week. Jeff's executive assistant created like this workflow where basically like it sends Jeff like a summary of the people he's meeting the next day and has like scrapes the web on LinkedIn and something that in the past like you would imagine like you had to have an engineer to build that, and she did it like in a couple hours.
Or she would spend half of her day in the afternoon to when she left doing that for him for the next day. And now she's doing what so many people have done, is like automating part of her job and probably doing a better output.
Yeah. And to close one a bit more deep, what are you optimizing in life and how does that align with how you spend your time?
So it's something that I think a lot about because there are a lot of demands on my time, as I'm sure there are with you. I have 3 young children. I have a husband. I have my desire to stay somewhat healthy and sane through exercise. And then, of course, I have my other baby, which is Habi, that gives me such an incredible sense of fulfillment because I know the potential of what this business can do for millions of families and for the region as a whole. So allocating time can be really, really tricky. But I think I tried to focus on long-term sustainability to achieve the missions in the long term. So my big theory is like, I can't allocate time perfectly on a day basis or on a week basis, but I think about it more on like a quarterly basis. But in general, I'm really methodical around certain pieces of the business keeping up with, deep diving on exciting new projects. I need to keep learning. I was actually saying I want to join more of these AI trainings because I've fallen behind in my ability to use some of these new tools. But then I also need to stay healthy so that I can be present and thoughtful. And I need to make time to exercise in a way that in the beginning of the business, I didn't do a good job doing. And I also need to be a good mom so that my kids are happy and healthy and I know they're thriving so that when I'm in Mexico or Colombia, frequently, I traveled every week for the last 6 weeks to one of the 2 markets. I know that they are stable and healthy and happy. So a lot of it has to do with like really thoughtfully mapping out my days and my weeks to make sure everything gets in, and honestly just hoping for the best and having a good attitude. There's a really good metaphor that I picked up when I climbed Kilimanjaro, probably like 12 years ago. So on the last day when you summit, you start climbing actually at 10 p.m. So you take this weird nap from like 6 to 10 p.m. and they wake you up and you put your headlamps on and you climb until 6 a.m. And it's a really long time to climb in the dark and you only see your feet and the heels of the people in front of you because you have your head down in the pitch black. And I asked the guide, why did we start at night? Like that kind of sucked. It was freezing cold. It was dark. It was super boring. And he said the rate of success, we found that the rate of success when we start people at night than when we start people in the morning is significantly higher. I forget what he said, but like 3 times higher of people actually reaching the summit. And their theory is because you don't see what's ahead of you. When you see the amount that you have yet to climb, you get so overwhelmed and you feel I'll never get there. So a bunch of people would give up. But if you can only see, you know where you're going conceptually and you have a vision of reaching the summit, but if you only actually see every single step and you just keep going one by one by one, people get there. And that's kind of how I try to think about my day to day, which is like, I don't need to consistently look up and recognize how hard everything is. Like, I do what I need to do every single day. I plan the next week or the month. And then I know in 20 years, I want to make sure I did a good job on everything. And probably one day at a time is how I'll get there.
No, Brynne, with that amazing story, it's been amazing having you here. Enjoy the conversation. Very excited to see Habi become an AI first company.
So nice to see you, and thank you for this opportunity.